The Tiger.
All right, welcome back in. Hanging with Hester, presented by Richards Honda. Excited to be joined now by Connor Rogers. Does a great job for Bleacher Report on the Stick to Football podcast as well to talk about the NFL draft. Connor, how you doing today?
Hester, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing well, man. I really appreciate your time. I know this is kind of the busy season. As you start to get your mock drafts out, you start to really dive into some of these prospects. And LSU has got a bunch of them out there this year. 9 guys leave early, of course. You've got the seniors like Joe Burrow. So let's go ahead. Let's get Joe Burrow out of the way because I think we all assume, unless something absolutely crazy happens, Joe Burrow will be that number 1 pick when the Bengals take the clock.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I think this has been the case for a really long time. Obviously, you could look at Tua and say, could he still get back in the mix? But I don't see the Bengals taking that risk because of the health concerns. And obviously, Joe just had a historic season. He's taken a leap that, I don't think anyone saw this kind of leap coming. He's been so good in every aspect of the game. He's somebody that he's great character. He's going to interview really well. There's no part of this process that he's not going to thrive. And I think for the Bengals, Jim Nagy even told us that, Zach Taylor was calling the Burrow family because they wanted to get to work early at the Senior Bowl. But it was a long season for Joe, so I understand why he wasn't there. But that just goes to show you how early the Bengals have already kind of made this decision official.
When you study his tape, Connor, when you look at Joe Burrow's game, what's the biggest thing that stands out to you?
I think his ability in the pocket. It's interesting. When we look at top quarterbacks year after year, we get infatuated with arm talent and arm strength. And I think that's actually not the case with Joe. Now, he throws a really accurate ball, but the way he's going to wow you is his playmaking ability and his feel in the pocket. And I think one of the most important things that, an evaluator taught me a very long time ago is you really can't teach feel in the pocket. And Joe has it on a level that just not a lot of guys do. We're talking about that Tony Romo level of feel where you could work in and out of the pocket on, so many different levels and still throw with touch to all 3 levels of the field with your eyes up the field. I think we've seen guys like, obviously Mahomes, but even Deshaun Watson, they've been really, really good at that at the next level right now, and Burrow's going to make the same kind of transition. So to have that kind of trait, something that you really, really can't teach, he can get better at grasping a new offense or anything like that. He can work on that at the next level, even going through reads. I know some people, the only questions I've really seen is, how much juice does he have on that throw outside the hashes? And Joe, the arm gets stronger on these guys. It really does. And they'll make adjustments. So I think that to me is the most special thing about Burrow's game.
All right, Connor, outside of Joe Burrow, who else do you think goes in the first round from LSU?
Well, I think the biggest riser has been Patrick Queen. That's one that I'm sure the LSU program didn't even really expect him to leave this year, and his final few games down the stretch were as good as any linebacker as we've seen in college football this year, especially in coverage. That's something that the NFL is craving right now, and Queen is so good at. So I think he's worked his way into the first round, which is a little bit of a surprise, but it's been great for him. Christian Fulton is the guy I'm interested because I've loved the film for 2 years. I know from talking to you, he's battled injuries at times. He's had some ups and downs, but in this corner class, you look at it, after Okudah, the door is wide open for the second corner spot. There's going to be C.J. Henderson from Florida. There's going to be Jeff Gladney from TCU, guys like that. But I think when Fulton is healthy, I do think he's the second best corner in this class. So that's the really, really big one for me. And then K'Lavon Chaisson, of course, is somebody that, once again, had this excellent finish down the stretch where you're finally starting to see the production on paper. He's not just getting, really, really good pressure. He's converting them to sacks. We saw the spin move against Isaiah Wilson against Georgia. Wilson's a good tackle that, K'Lavon did that too. He really beat up Alex Leatherwood. Leatherwood didn't even declare. It seems like he probably made that decision after that game with how bad he got beat by Chaisson. So at LSU across the board, they have a lot of guys. Grant Delpit is another one where you look at it and you go, man, what happened to him this year? I thought he was so much better as a sophomore. I even really liked his flashes as a freshman. But I think with Grant, the talent is still there where, once again, this isn't a loaded safety class. You have Xavier McKinney from Alabama, who's probably going to go in the first round. But Grant doesn't have a lot of competition outside of that. So a handful of top-flight guys for LSU, and there's obviously a million different guys that can go on day 2 as well.
Where do you see Grant Delpit kind of falling to in the NFL draft? Because last year, after his sophomore season, he was on every top 10 list that you'd find. And now you're seeing some 24, 25 range, even second round, I've seen Grant Delpit's name. And so where do you think he ultimately falls?
I think Dallas is a really nice fit, actually. They're a team that I felt like they should have capitalized on the safeties falling last year. A guy like Taylor Rapp would have been really good for them, and they chose to take Tristan Hill from UCF instead. So they're kind of still sitting there, and they're looking at the safety position and saying, hey, we got to get a guy this year, especially if they lose Byron Jones from that secondary. Now, he plays more corner, but once again, you can't lose a piece from a secondary where you already have a hole there. So I like Delpit to Dallas. I think it's a good fit. I think he would really, really be a big upgrade for what they have there. I like his fit with Todd Bowles in Tampa, but I think Tampa's going to prioritize other positions. They're going to look at the quarterbacks. Maybe they'll even look to move up from 14, but I don't think 14 is even really too early for Delpit. Once again, I know people have concerns about the film this year, but I just think that he'll kind of rise above this safety class, him and McKinney. So those are some pretty good landing spots when you look at the coaching staffs that those two teams have.
All right, Connor, one of my favorite guys to cover since I've been doing this is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The running back really did so many different things for this LSU national championship team, catching the ball, pass pro, running the football. I know playing the position that the running back spot is not one that is always going to go in the first round anymore. You don't really take guys in the first round at that position. So where do you see a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire that can do so many different things fall into in the draft?
Firmly in the second round, and I think it'll be the top 50. That's how good this guy is. He really is the complete package. I mean, this LSU team obviously has skill, talent galore. I didn't even mention Justin Jefferson. He'll go in the first round as well, of course. But when you look at Clyde, when they teach you how to really scout running backs, one of the common themes is they say, can you do 2 out of 3? And that means obviously pass protect, run the ball, and catch the ball. And with Clyde, I've seen all 3. So when you can do all 3 of those things, you don't have to come off the field. He has phenomenal contact balance. He's a really, really tough player. And he's just a flat-out, really, really productive, reliable player. I know he got banged up, but he's still a really reliable player. I think he's firmly locked into the top 50. And some guys going back to school really helped him right now because you look at, Jonathan Taylor, of course, and DeAndre Swift. They're really, really good players, but Chuba Hubbard went back to school. Najee Harris went back to school. Travis Etienne went back to school. That kind of puts Clyde here, I think, in the top 3 backs of this class where he's going to be a top 50 pick because everybody always sits there and they say, well, you can get a running back at any point on day 3. You can't get a Clyde Edwards-Helaire anywhere on day 3.
What kind of offense do you think he would thrive in the most? Because the way that the NFL is going, obviously more teams are open to the spread ideas. You're no longer the I formation. It brings a tear to my eye that that's the case, but that is the case. No longer a lot of fullbacks on these rosters, no 2 tight ends, not a lot of 12 personnel. So with more teams going to kind of a spread, open-minded system, where do you think Clyde really fits best?
I'd like to see him an inside zone runner, to be honest with you. I don't know if he has that burst to really run outside zone a lot. Now, that's something that we'll find out about the combine when you see those testing numbers because I think he has more burst than given credit for. But I think with his vision and patience and his ability to read everything in front of him, I think in an inside zone scheme at the next level with so many teams are running, now you're seeing, you look at the 49ers in the Super Bowl, they run literally every single kind of run scheme within one game. So I think there'll be a place for him within that. And once again, when your ability is like that, to see the field in front of you and follow your blocks, I mean, you know this as much as anyone, Hester. And then what he can do when he gets to the second level of the field with breaking tackles, that's what makes him so, so special and why he's going to be valued so highly.
All right, catching up with Connor Rogers from the Bleacher Report and the Stick to Football podcast here on Hangin with Hester. All right, let's talk about that next group of guys who declared early for LSU. Your Thaddeus Moss, your Sadiq Charles. Of the other guy, Jacob Phillips at the inside linebacking position. Out of those guys, who do you kind of see maybe going the highest? And let's just call it, who maybe has the longest NFL career out of that bunch?
I think when you look at Moss, he's the one that probably goes the highest because when you look at the tight end group, it's been just an okay group. I think Cole Kmet declaring from Notre Dame has given us some boost. There was some guys at the Senior Bowl that had really nice weeks, but Moss is somebody that he's kind of surprised me on film. I think he's really, really high effort as a blocker. We know he can catch the ball. You're seeing so many teams in the NFL right now, not just use 2 tight ends, but really use 3. A lot of people laughed at Baltimore when they had 3 tight ends on somewhat significant contracts or use significant draft picks to get them. And then Baltimore goes and lights the world on fire with that different kind of offense we saw this year. So I think for Moss, I could see him going in the 3rd round. Charles is kind of a mystery right now. I don't really know, exactly. I don't think he'll, rise above the tier 2 offensive lineman. I can't really see him sneaking into round 2. There's a lot of good names in that group. And then I think Phillips actually has a really good shot at longevity, just the way he plays the position at linebacker. He's someone that's been a little overlooked at times, but I think he could do a lot of different things for a front seven. So while that group doesn't get a lot of the glory, all three of them have significant roles at the next level, which shows you how loaded this LSU team was.
All right, he is Connor Rogers, does a great job. You can follow him on Twitter at Connor J. Rogers. Also, subscribe to the Stick to Football podcast. Those guys do a great job. Always love when I go on with those fellas. Connor, appreciate the time today, my man.
Hester, thanks so much, man. Enjoy the weekend.
Absolutely. You as well.